Sean McDermott said the Bills are looking for matchup problems at wide receiver in the draft. How can the Bills find them? We're exploring that today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. If you caught yesterday's podcast, I teased that I would be doing this episode today. And our objective today is to look at the top 20 wide receivers in the 2024 NFL draft, at least the 20 that I identify as the best 20, and ask ourselves the question, what matchup problem do they present? And the reason we're attacking this conversation from this angle is because of what Sean McDermott said in his pre-draft press conference on Thursday. You know, before Sean McDermott met with the media, Brandon Beane met with the media, and he talked about how this offense doesn't need a number one wide receiver to be productive. And Sean McDermott was then asked about that, and he had a very interesting quote. I'm going to play the entire quote for you now. And coming out of those two press conferences, I think everyone's focusing in on what Brandon Beane said. I think the far more interesting thing is what Sean McDermott said, and I'm going to play that for you right now. Then we're going to work through who I think are the 20 best receivers in this class and identify what matchup problem they create for opponents.
One of the things that Brandon said when talking about wide receivers was, with this team, he didn't believe that, you know, if you don't have a clear-cut number one wide receiver, that this offense can't succeed and be successful. Where is your philosophy on that? Do you believe that you guys do need that, you know, number one guy when it comes to a wide receiver?
Well, it's a matchup game, right? I can tell you when we go into a game plan meeting, offensively or defensively, and I'll just mention defensively, you look and you say, who do we have to take away, right? And so that's where you like to have a number one player, whether it's offensively, defensively, or you look at it, you know, opponent looking at us and saying, hey, who do they have that we have to worry about? So yes, having said that, there's also a piece of, there's a lot of power in sharing the football, right? There's a lot of power in that type of approach as well. So it's got to go together, but the matchup piece is real, and so that's what you look for in the draft, quite honestly. And do you find that is it realistic to say that player is going to come in day one if we go in that direction, but whatever position that they're going to be able to establish themselves in year one at that level, that's really hard to do. But over the course of time, you hope that you're drafting well enough to find that matchup problem for other people.
Can Dalton Kincaid be a matchup problem?
I believe he can.
I had to leave that little piece at the end about Dalton Kincaid in there because for all the conversations that we're having about adding wide receivers and a number one receiver, Dalton Kincaid's going to lead this team in targets, and he's going to be really productive. And I thought it was fun to leave that bit in there. But a super compelling quote from Sean McDermott saying very specifically, we're looking for matchup problems in the draft. So let's work through these wide receivers and discuss this. Now, one other thing that I want to say in the build-up here is I collaborated with Kyle Krabs on answering these questions. Kyle Krabs, the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with me, also the host of Locked On Dolphins. And I said, Kyle, I want to talk about all of these players with you. And I want you and I to agree on what the matchup problem that each one creates. And I want to look at this through the lens of, If this player was on the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins had to defend them, what is the matchup problem? What is the matchup concern that you would have? All right, I've done enough build up. Let's go through these top 20 wide receivers. We will start with Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. And for Marvin Harrison, the matchup problem is very simple. He's as complete of a wide receiver as you're going to find. He has everything. There's no weaknesses. He's big, strong, athletic, runs routes, catches the football, elite body control, elite ball skills, has everything. Cut and dry. Very simple. Best prospect in the draft, in my opinion, not particularly close. I think he's a much better wide receiver prospect than Caleb Williams is quarterback prospect. Next up, Malik Neighbors out of LSU. It's the run after catch ability with Malik Neighbors and how that leads to explosive plays. Malik Neighbors, around 200 pounds, has 4.38 speed. And for his college career, 190 catches, 6.6 yards after catch per reception. You put the ball in this guy's hands, and he is dangerous. You hold your breath because he can make explosive plays with the ball in his hands. He is explosive and creative, and you can be fast and explosive and not good with the ball in your hands. I've seen plenty of players like that. Malik Neighbors has the entire package here. Odunze out of Washington. The matchup problem that he creates is that he can threaten the defense on all three levels of the field. So no matter how you want to get the ball to Odunze, he can be productive, and he has a lot of catch radius. Really good hands, really good body control. It's the completeness of his skill set. Kind of a discount Marvin Harrison. I don't think he's quite the prospect of Marvin Harrison. But the fact that he can win at every level of the field and make you pay puts your secondary in a bit of a bind because there's no predictability for what he's going to do. Xavier Legette, wide receiver out of South Carolina. He is a physical mismatch for cornerbacks at all levels of the field. 6'1", 221 pounds, runs 4.39, and is super strong and physical. How many NFL corners are going to be able to match up with that? It's going to be tough. That's a big assignment. They're going to have to bring their big boy boxing gloves to the field to be able to deal with them. 6'1", 221, dense frame. Oh, by the way, 4.39 40-yard dash. His 2023 season at South Carolina was spectacular. 17.7 yards per catch. Average depth of target of 13.4. Meanwhile, averaging 6.4 yards after catch per reception on 71 catches. The dude is a physical mismatch for cornerbacks at every level of the field. Then you get to Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. He is a height, weight, speed guy with vertical ball tracking, right? That's the matchup problem that he creates, is that he's big and he's fast and he knows how to track the football down the field. 6'3", 209 pounds, 4.33 speed, and averaged over 17 yards per reception this past season at LSU. Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. The matchup problem that he creates is with his ball skills. This guy has elite ball skills, elite body control, 6'2", 205, had one drop on 86 targets. Catches everything. And it's because of his ability to position himself at the catch point while tracking the ball and winning the ball. Not necessarily in contested situations, but how he positions himself to win at the catch point is outstanding. Lad McConkey, wide receiver out of Georgia. Simply put, he is a separation specialist from the slot. The dude knows how to get open, runs great routes, and makes himself very available for the quarterback. He's super quarterback friendly. And so that separation ability in tight quarters is outstanding. That's what makes him a matchup problem. Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. I think that it's very similar to the Lad McConkey conversation, but he's a separation specialist with alignment versatility. I feel a lot better about Ricky Pearsall playing on the line of scrimmage versus the slot than I do Ladd McConkey. I think there's more functional strength available in the form of Ricky Pearsall. Guys that can get open and have very consistent hands. I think that's very true for both Ladd McConkey and Ricky Pearsall. They get open, they consistently catch the football, and they can win in tight quarters. Their ability to separate quickly, like that separation quickness is outstanding on both of those players. Xavier Worthy out of Texas. It's speed. The guy ran a 4.21 40-yard dash with a 1.44 second 10-yard split. That is the 100th percentile. That is better than anyone's ever done it. Oh, by the way, 41-inch vert, 131-inch broad jump. The dude is explosive, rare explosiveness. And that speed is a problem. There's not a single player in the NFL that can run step for step with Xavier Worthy. They can't do it. And I got a great question in our subtext the other day. And it was about, well, Joe, teams are playing two high safety shells against the Bills. They want to take away explosive plays down the field. Does it make sense to try to find a speed guy, or would you rather just have guys with size and physicality that can win and create leverage and win in kind of a more congested areas? And I think that's a great question. But speed kills. You can try to take away explosive plays with two high shells. But at the end of the day, you can either win a foot race or you can't. Nobody can run with Xavier Worthy. Think about this through the lens of the Miami Dolphins. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, you think teams aren't playing, two high shells and trying to take away explosive plays down the field? Yeah, they are. The problem is nobody can run with Tyreek Hill. So you get a guy like this, and obviously you can see the matchup problem that they create. And then when you have that type of guy that can really push the roof of the defense, it opens up everything underneath. Not only for that player, because if you can run by somebody, they're afraid of that. They're going to want to create that downfield leverage, and you can cut off your route and snap it back down stem and work across face, and guys can't run with you, right? It opens up everything for you, but also for your teammates, because you're stretching, you're pushing the safeties and the overall vertical leverage of the defense down the field, which opens up things underneath. So yeah, I mean, I'm not like enamored with Xavier Worthy. I have a lot of concerns. 5'11", 165 pounds. Like, that's very concerning. But that speed is absolutely a matchup problem. All right, we got a bunch more receivers to get to. 12 more receivers to get to. So be sure to stick with me. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to be certain that you can find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has the tools to help you find the right professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. You can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats right now, it might not have the time or resources to hire, and LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make that process easier for you. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I've been told I'm a competitive person. Do you think that's true? Well, of course it is. I have a competitive side, just like we all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but now I can also rob their vaults of riches for myself, and the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all around the world in timed tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, folks, a bunch of more receivers to get to here on this episode, including a couple of guys that are good prospects, but it was hard to identify where they create a matchup problem for an opponent. And that's actually true about the next guy, Troy Franklin out of Oregon. Kyle and I, we talked through it and we're like, I'm not exactly sure what the matchup problem is. Sure, he's got down the field ability, right? He's certainly a very productive down the field receiver at Oregon, but there's a lot of concerns there in terms of, what type of hands does he have? Does he really have top end speed at 178 pounds and 6'1"? There's concerns there. So there's a lot to like, but in terms of saying, yeah, this is the matchup problem that they create, couldn't really find one that we agreed on with Troy Franklin. Jalen Polk out of Washington, ball tracking and body control down the field. This dude is outstanding at that. 6'1", 203 pounds, and his ability to track, create that vertical leverage is outstanding. Now, he's not a burner or anything like that, but there's a lot to like about his ability to really stack corners and go get the football. So, good-looking prospect. Probably underrated. I probably have not talked about Jalen Polk enough. Jermaine Bruton out of Alabama, it's everything vertical for him, right? The field stretching ability of Jermaine Bruton is simply outstanding. Now, the guy's got red flag after red flag, so there's buyer beware for sure, but this dude is a big-time vertical field stretcher. Roman Wilson out of Michigan, I love him as a prospect. Hard to look at his game and say, you know what, that's the matchup problem that he creates. Really good route runner, can get open, really good hands, but if you're looking for a superpower here, I don't think you're going to find one. Really rock-solid player. I wouldn't be mad if the Bills drafted him. I think he'd be a great pick at 60. I just don't know if there's something that you look at with Roman Wilson and say, you know what, that's a real matchup problem for an opponent. Javon Baker out of UCF, to me, it's his ability to create vertical separation. His release package, how he gets on top of corners, it makes them play through him. This past season at UCF, 52 catches, over 1,100 yards. He averaged 21.9 yards per reception with an average depth of target of 17.1. The dude makes plays down the field. Not a burner. In some ways, a lot of what I talked about with Jalen Polk out of Washington, but guys that really get on top of corners, and if you're going to make a play on the ball, you have to go through the receiver to do it. And the production speaks for itself. 52 catches, 1,139 yards, 21.9 yards per reception, average depth of target, 17.1. Malik Washington out of Virginia. This dude is unbelievable in terms of yards after catch. He is slippery. He has short area elusiveness. I mean, you put the ball in this guy's hands and he's going to make plays. And he did that in a big way at Virginia this past year. He transferred in from Northwestern, and he goes to Virginia, has 111 catches this past season. His average depth of target, 8.1. So they're just throwing the ball to him and asking him to create, and he did create 6.4 yards after catch per reception. 5'8.5", 191 pounds. So he's not tall, but he's got that dense build about him, low center of gravity that allows him to be elusive and have that density about his frame that allows him to sustain himself through contact. He can actually get out of some contact. And one of my favorite stats about Malik Washington is obviously the production, but let me put it like this. 12 games in 2023, went over 100 yards in 10 of those. The two that he did not, his first game of the season against Tennessee, his first ever game with Virginia, and then he had 97 yards against Boston College. So 97 or more yards in 11 of 12 games for Malik Washington. And there's something to be said for everybody knows this guy's getting the football, and you know exactly how he's going to get it, right? They're just going to throw it to him short and ask him to create, and you still can't stop it. Like, that says a lot about this dude. You want yards after catch? Get yourself Malik Washington out of Virginia. Malachi Corely, Western Kentucky. Kyle and I both agree that this is discount Xavier Legette. 5'11", 205, so not 6'1", 221, right? So it's smaller, not quite as explosive, 4.56 40-yard dash. Xavier Legette ran 4.39, so smaller, not as explosive, but still big-time yards after catch and physicality. I mean, in some ways, you kind of think of this guy as a running back. Like, that's what they did at Western Kentucky. Just give him the ball and ask him to create. And he did 8.2 yards after catch per reception on 259 career catches. Insane. So discount Xavier Legette. I don't think he's nearly as complete of a player in terms of what I watched this past year, but if you want that guy that is creative with the ball in his hands and can win after contact, he wins differently than some of these other yak guys. He's not just super explosive. It's that dense build, but also some physicality that exists with Malachi Corely. Keon Coleman out of Florida State. I guess his matchup problem that he creates is his ability at the catch point, not necessarily in contested catches. I don't think he's very good in contested catches, but his hands at the catch point, his body control at the catch point as a power slot, right? I think this is a player that you'd love to put in the slot and create some matchup problems because he is 6'3", 213 pounds. Have him go up against slot corners and see if they can play through him, right? Really good body control and hands, 4.2% drop rate in college. So very secure. I think everybody saw him. Was it the gauntlet drill? Everybody was losing their minds over it. Yeah, he's got good body control and good hands. He's got good size. And so you put him in some matchups against slot corners, I think he's going to have some success. Jalen McMillan out of Washington. We think the matchup problem that he creates is the how complete of a route runner he is. This guy, really, really good route runner. And had some injuries this past year. I think the production would have been even better at Washington. And maybe there's some ceiling to unlock here. He's a player that I'm a pretty big fan of. But you want a route runner? Jalen McMillan is absolutely that. Devontez Walker out of North Carolina. He is a strong vertical plane speed receiver. Ran 4.3s. We think he's discount Brian Thomas Jr. 16.8 yards per reception, 17.1 on the average depth of target. This guy can win down the field, has plenty of speed. And so if you miss out on Brian Thomas and that's a player you wanted in the first round, go get yourself Cooper DeJean or something like that in the first round. Come back and get Devontez Walker a little bit later. I think you're going to get some similar type of skill. And then the last guy, Johnny Wilson out of Florida State. It's just size for him. I think he's got a lot to figure out. He's probably really a tight end, but he's not really physical enough for me to love him at tight end. But 6'6", 231, 35 3/8 inch arms, 84.5-inch wingspan. That's all 97th percentile or more. So this dude's just massive, and he runs pretty well for that size. So, again, I think he's got a lot to figure out as a football player, and I'm not sure he's going to work as a receiver in the NFL. But what matchup problem does he create? He's going to be bigger than anyone else that he goes up against if they're going to put corners over him. And he's bigger than most safeties. And, from a catch radius perspective, he's bigger than anybody, right? 84.5-inch wingspan, 6'6", 231, over 35-inch arms. Unless you're putting a defensive end on him, he's going to have more catch radius than anyone else. So there you have it, folks. 20 receivers, what matchup problem they create. Talking about this through the lens of responding to Sean McDermott and him being very specific about the receivers and what they're looking for in the draft. And so hopefully you enjoyed this angle of having this conversation to maybe give us some clues and unpack and figure out, all right, well, based on this, if they're looking for matchup problems, which of these presents the most attractive matchup problems that make the most sense for the Buffalo Bills? That's what I hope to do today, and that's what I hope you took away from it. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.